What's up, everybody? It's me again. I thought I would try to do a little reading from this before I have to go to work today. So, next chapter is called The Love of Shmion. And I don't know if anybody is watching channels like Ben Born Again. Like, dude is literally having to bleep out the word J and the word Shmionist. Like, what is the world coming to? And then I was literally just watching another video from like a Palestinian guy, I think, and like he was talking about, when that whole thing went down with TikTok, that it was basically because the Shmionists were noticing that there was dissent regarding the Shminicide that's going on in Shmalistine. It's so fucking stupid, dude, that I have to talk like this. But um but that's like what happened. So then people like Larry Ellison, I think that's who it was, one of these Shmionist people bought the app, and now, you know, I have a friend that just does like makeup and like, lifestyle videos. She'll do little videos of her and her wife like going out to eat or something, and she's like, TikTok sucks now. Like, she doesn't even understand like what's really going on with it and why that it is the way it is now. And I feel like YouTube is kind of the same. I mean, it seems like they're trying to push out new content creators, but when you're a content creator like me that's literally trying to wake up the people by exposing them to facts, but it's, has to do with Shmionism. Nobody, like, I was amazed. I got like 8 views on my last short that had more to do with Bible than Shmionism. Nevertheless, let's just pick it up here before I run out of space on this phone again. The Love of Shmion by Moshe Sherratt. Invoking the right of possession, the delegate for Pakistan and others argued that Shmalistine was not Great Britain's property for her to promise it to the Jays, and it was not. But for that matter, nor were Syria or Iraq Great Britain's, and yet her promises in their regard were accepted as binding pledges. The Arabs, it was argued, had fought on the side of the Allies in World War I, but so did the Jays. Their volunteer legions, having come to Schmalistine from England, United States, Canada, Argentine. It's Argentine? Isn't it Argentina? Argentine. And from Schmalistine itself, to take part in the country's liberation. It is an established fact that Schmalistine Arabs had no share whatsoever in the fighting. In the final analysis, it was the exertions, sacrifices, and final victory of Allied armies which resulted in the liberation of Schmalistine and the Arab provinces. It is to that victory that most independent Arab states of today owe their existence. If they accept the boom of independence which fell into their lap like a ripe plum, they must accept its price, the pledge to grant the Arabs independence in large areas and the setting aside of Schmalistine for the Jayish people or organic parts of the same war settlement. The Jayish people was born in Schmalistine and shaped by it. No, they weren't. The country gave birth to no other people either before or after. It is untrue that the Jays all left Schmalistine in the 1st century. Their mass settlement in Schmalistine persisted till the 7th century despite persecutions, expulsions, and the ruthless crushing of rebellions. Nor is it true that the Jays have ever turned their backs on Schmalistine. Bro, they're making shit up as they go along. This is wild. Their efforts to return have never ceased, and the present phase of resettlement, which began in the late 70s of the last century, is but the last link in the chain. Shmionism did not start with the Balfour Declaration. The Declaration was the product, not the origin of Shmionism. Yeah, we know. Thanks for admitting it. The Jayish state idea is not a crazy whim of recent origin. It is a dream that's of centuries of Jayish martyrdom. The vision of Jays in all generations, the practical idea which animated the first returning pioneers of 70 years ago, both the anomalous position of the Jewish people in the diaspora and the remedy urged by SCHMIONISM for it are products of history, and the whole problem cannot be understood outside its context. I might here recall one curious slur passed on our work by the representative of Egypt, who said that all we do in Schmalestein is artificial, and it's true. That's facts, and they don't like facts, dude. They are allergic to them. Okay, let's see. I wonder exactly what he meant by that term and how it was intended to impress us. Go and tell our children who were born in the country that they are artificial. Tell that to the trees we have planted, to the fields we have reclaimed, to the factories in which we are working. Try and dismiss as artificial the potash plant on the Dead Sea or the powerhouse on the Jordan. In this sense, the dam of Aswan in Egypt is artificial. So is the Tennessee Valley Project. So is, in fact, the entire magnificent civilization of this American continent, which is all the result of migration. It's not the same thing, bro, because we have not, wrapped up a whole friggin' religion, okay? In fact, America was founded by Freemasons. And George Washington wasn't even the first president. There was 6 or 7 people before him, I'm pretty sure. But I digress. Okay. Where were we? The tone and even the language of most of the speeches of Arab delegates make it difficult for me to address a word of appeal to them. But let us all think of the common people in Schmalestein, Arabs and Jays. And see, this is what's crazy, because they have been trying, at least since the 70s, to brainwash Americans into hating Arab people and into making them think that Muslims are all terrorists, okay? They're not. There's over 1 billion Muslims on the planet, okay? And if anybody knows anything, it's that the Jays have started Mossad was behind what was that one Schmerist organization? ISIS or whatever. And even God. I can't think of it. There's another quote-unquote Schmerist organization that was literally created by Mossad. So if you know anything about the Hegelian dialectic, they create a problem and then they create the solution. And then they synthesize that. But it's all them. They're the ones doing all of it, okay? None of these Schmerist organizations that have popped up, this idea of Islamic Schmerer is fucking bullshit. Anyways, because it's all Mossad that's behind all of it. Anyways, but let us all think of the common people in Schmalestein, Arabs and Jays. Let us think of the common people throughout the Middle East. Let us think of those who meet each other in the fields, who rub shoulders on the railways, who do business together, or at least would have liked to do business together. They're all fundamentally interested in the same things. They all want bread and work and better living conditions, decent homes, good roads, schools for their children, more efficient communications. And this is true. That is what most people want. But with this Schmionist ideology, you can't just have that, because you're forever fighting being conquered and your wealth of your nation being siphoned off by usury. Naturally, they all want to see their national cultures flourish and their people secure and independent, sharing in the dignity and happiness which free life and enlightened citizenship can offer. There is strife today. There is fear and there is hatred. But beneath it all, there is an upsurging of common human feelings which is bound to assert itself. The returning Jay passionately believes that he belongs to that country, to that part of the world. Yeah, he believes it, but that doesn't make it true. Okay. He is a returning native. Okay. He knows there is room for him there. He has proved it. He does not take room away. Hindsight being 2020 and the fake year of 2026, they're currently committing a schmenicide. He doesn't want to take room away. You have done nothing but take room away. Syria is now a pile of rubble. Libya is now a pile of rubble. You've gone after all these other countries. There's only like a couple left on the list that was it Petraeus? No, I can't remember. It was one of like the big military guys around like I think Bush Jr.'s term, went on CNN and talked about this list that the SCHMIONIST had of countries that had to fall for them to take over and their global domination. And there's literally Venezuela was on that list, and Venezuela just got what last year, and then Iran was on that list. There was there was like 7 countries or something on that list, and all but like 2 of them, I think North Korea and like I can't remember what the other country, but like literally they're getting it done. And Trump he has double crossed the Americans. So if you voted for him, stop voting. Like, you're giving these people consent to rule you by voting. Just stop. Anyways. Okay, it says they didn't want to take room away. He gives. He has a great deal to learn. He has something to teach. He wants equality, nothing more, nothing less, the same opportunity, the same status. His neighbors all have their states. He must have his own Jayish state. Nothing in the world will eradicate from his heart the love of Shemayan. Nothing will stifle in his soul the urge for freedom in his own land. If he is robbed of his due, he will not submit, but he wants peace. He knows that one day he will be understood and accepted as an equal. He prays that day may be near. Horse shit! Okay. Quote, the enemies of Shmayanism are enemies of democracy, end quote. Democracy, you guys, is just mob rule, okay? What we were supposed to have here in this country was a representative republic, all right? But we don't have that now. And now we have a banana republic because our past at least 2 elections were stolen. All right, so this is from Daniel P. Moynihan. He was a U.S. ambassador to the UN, and he stated that the United Nations has become a locus of general assault by the majority of the nations in the world on the principles of liberal democracy, which are now found only in a minority of nations, and for that matter, a dwindling minority. It was not Shmayanism that was condemned in the United Nations on Friday. It was Shmizrael, Yasharel. And not the state of Yasharel nearly so much as the significance, as Yasharel is one of the very few places outside of Western Europe and North America and a few offshore islands where Western democratic principles survive, and all of such places currently the most exposed. This reckless act was adopted by 70 votes to 29 with 27 abstentions, a wholesale decision of the despotisms of the right in the world to side with the despotisms of the left, in common concert against the liberal democracies of the center. It was an awful occasion, but it had about it, most of all, the awfulness of truth. Yeah, because the rest of the world already fucking knew what was going on. Fairness to Arab and J, written by Winston Churchill. To whom was the pledge of the Balfour Declaration made? It was not made to the Jays of Schmalestein. It was not made to those who were actually living in Schmalestein. It was made to world J-Uri, and in particular to the Shmayanist associations. It was in consequence of and on the basis of this pledge that we received important help in the war, and that after the war we received from the Allied and associated powers the mandate for Schmalestein. This pledge, it's a mandate. That's what I'm saying. Like, they were bought and and sold, because Germany in World War One already offered a peace deal, and I can't remember what the name of it was, but it's basically like a Latin term, which is like to go back to the way things were before the war even started. The Germans were they were winning. They had them all whooped, okay? And Great Britain was about to say yes, but the SCHMIONISts came through and were like, no, we will get America into this war, because they wanted Schmalestein, and it was not Britain's to give to them. Is everything starting to make sense now? I hope it is. Okay, it was in consequence of and on the basis of this pledge that we received important help in the war. Okay, he tells you right there that they received Schmionist money and help from the Schmionists in the war, because Britain was freaking losing to the Germans, who had been so kind to the Jays, opened up their country to them, only to be double-crossed, which is what literally led to World War II. All this other extracurricular BS, all this other nonsense that you were told at school, it's all bullshit, unless your teacher told you this. And Winston Churchill right here is admitting as much, that when the Schmionists got involved, that they got a mandate for Schmalestein, which wasn't theirs to give. This pledge of a home, of refuge, of an asylum, was not made to the Jays in Schmalestein, but to the Jays outside of Schmalestein, to that vast, unhappy mass of scattered, persecuted, wandering Jays, whose intense, unchanging, unconquerable desire has been for a national home. I cannot help but roll my eyes. Persecuted. They act like they've never done anything wrong, and that we don't know why the whole world hates us. It's because you siphon off the wealth of nations. It's because you subvert the cultures of nations, which I will be reading. Tavistock Institute, Social Engineering the Masses. Who do you think was behind the Tavistock Institute? The Schmionists. Go look this up right now if you can find it. Barbara Specter literally saying that the West has not quite learned to be multicultural. And by that, they know that a cohesive society cannot exist when you just pump unfettered third world immigration into any country. It's going to crumble down into tribalism. And that's what you're seeing now. And cajillions of dollars have been put into this, okay? And if you think that Judeo-Christianity is like a thing, and you think that like they aren't total antonyms, they are not synonymous at all. There's no such thing as Judeo-Christian, okay? They are at odds with each other. Okay, I cannot feel that we have accorded to the Arab race unfair treatment after the support which they gave us in the late war. The Schmalestinian Arabs, of course, were for the most part fighting against us, but elsewhere over vast regions inhabited by the Arabs, independent Arab kingdoms and principalities have come into being, such as had never known an Arab history before. Some have been established by Great Britain and others by France. When I wrote this dispatch in 1922, I was advised by, among others, Colonel Lawrence, the truest champion of Arab rights in modern times, whom modern times have known. He has recorded his opinion to the settlement was that the settlement was fair and just, his definite and settled opinion. Together we placed the Emir Abdullah in the Transjordania, where he remains faithful and prosperous to this day. Together, under the responsibility of the prime minister of those days, King Faisal was placed upon the throne of Iraq, where his descendants now rule. But we also showed ourselves continually resolved to close no door upon the ultimate development of a Jewish national home, fed by continued, oh, I just said Jewish, didn't I? By continued Jayish immigration into Shmalistine. And this is King Hussein on Arab-Shmuish cooperation. Mr. George Antonius, in the Arab Awakening, page 269, refers to an article from Al-Qibla, Mecca, number 183, of March 23rd, 1918, which he says appears to have been written by Hussein himself, quote, calling upon the Arab population in Palestine to bear in mind that their sacred books and their traditions enjoined upon them the duties of hospitality and tolerance, and exhorting them to welcome the Jays as brethren and cooperate with them for the common welfare, end quote. It should be added that this article also refers to the remarkable achievements of the Jayish people in Shmalistine as worthy of an imitation by the Arabs, and states that, quote, the resources of the country are still virgin soil, end quote, and will be developed by labor and capital of the Jayish immigrants. Quote, one of the most amazing things until recent times, end quote, the article goes on, quote, was that the Shmalistinian used to leave his country, wandering over the high seas in every direction. His native soil could not retain him, although his ancestors had lived on it for over 1,000 years. And at the same time, we saw the Jays from foreign countries streaming to Palestine from Russia, Germany, Austria, Spain, America. The cause of causes could not escape those who had the gift of a deeper insight. They knew that the country was for its original sons, and there's some Middle Eastern Abna'i Asliyan. I don't know. I don't speak whatever that language is. For all their differences, a sacred, beloved homeland, experience has proved their capacity to succeed in their energies and their labors. The return of these exiles to their homeland will prove materially and spiritually an experimental school for their brethren, i.e. the Arabs, who are with them in the fields, factories, trades, and in all things connected with toil and labor, end quote. An Adventure in the Human Spirit by Abba Ibn. For 4,000 years of history have extended their span between Israel's first nationhood and her restoration to freedom at the turning point of this century. The redemption from Egyptian bondage must be regarded in any serious view of history as one of the authentic points of climax in the progress of mankind. In the words of Henry George, quote, from between the paws of the rock-hewn Sphinx rises the genius of human liberty, and the trumpets of the Exodus throb with the defiant proclamation of the rights of man, end quote. See, and I think that most of our history is fucking BS, okay? I'm sorry. The BS detector, it's going off. It's going off. Because there's just too much questionableness about it to me. Like, and of course, history is also written by the winners. So, like, naturally, it's going to be BS. Anyway. Okay, let's see. Where am I? These forceful phrases do not overstate the case. The flight across the Red Sea and Sinai preserved from a revolutionary idea, which could never have evolved in the idolatrous despotism of the pharaohs. Damn. The ideal was the sovereignty of God, the ruler of the universe, omnipotent and indivisible, the embodiment of righteousness and the loving father of all creation. No. He was a genocidal maniac, okay? This Old Testament God who just killed, like, indiscriminately babies, women, children. He's not the father of Jesus, dude. Okay, let's see. From this idea, there flowed acceptances and rejections which came to dominate life amongst the children of man. Recognizing this event as the beginning of our true destiny, we, the descendants of those fleeing slaves, have, in all succeeding generations, commemorated the ancient saga. Our tradition to this day exhorts every Jay to recite the story of the Exodus from Egypt at the appointed season, as though he personally had experienced this redemption from servitude to freedom. Which modern scholarship shows that, like, the Hebrews, okay, that were there, because they weren't Jays. Jays practiced Judaism, which is not practice of Torah, but Talmud. I don't know how many times I have to say that. Anyways, they didn't have it that bad in Egypt, okay? And Yahweh, like, lured them out into the desert where all but 2 of them made it to the promised land, okay? Caleb and Joshua. They're the only 2, and probably their families, because, you know, they only counted the men back in those days. But there was, like, hundreds of thousands of people. He had them all starving out in the desert, and it was like a 6-mile journey, and it took 40 years. And that's their God, their loving Father. Get the fuck out of here. Nah, bro, we're not believing that shit anymore. The Bible is a collection of bullshit stories. All right. The narrative of this rebellion against idolatry by men charged with the custody of an idea also occurs in the history of thought in a more secular aspect. Because none of these modern day Jays that are in Schmalestein right now, they're all atheists. They don't even believe in God. The Exodus is the original and classic episode of national liberation. The memory of Yasharel's first struggle for freedom has inspired and consoled many subsequent movements for national independence. When Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson were consulted on the emblem of the future American Union, they suggested that the seal of the United States should represent the children of Yasharel fleeing across the parted waters of the Red Sea on their way to freedom. This is how you know all of this is Freemasonry. Because that's what it is. Go watch Ben Born Again. He has been putting up all his videos because they basically almost took his channel down for anti-Schmionitism. And I'm about, as soon as I get done reading this section, oh Lord, which is very long. Yeah, we're not going to be able to get through this, I don't think, in 45 minutes. But I am going to go into another video of another deceiver on YouTube that is like leading who knows how many Christians astray. And I don't even know if it was all Christian people in because he went live and he was, anyways, let me finish reading this and then I'll do another video on that. Okay. When Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson were consulted on the emblem of the future American Union, they suggested that the seal of the United States should represent the children of Israel fleeing across parted waters of the Red Sea on their way to freedom. This portrayal was to be surmounted by the uncannily Hebraic slogan, quote, resistance to tyrants is obedience to God, end quote. So you see, our whole country is based on BS. It is not, I think, presumptuous to believe that future generations will keep the memories of Yasharel's modern revival with a similar reverence and tenacity. This will certainly come to pass in the particular domain of Jayish history. Nothing since the miraculous redemption 4,000 years ago can compete in our history with this recent transition from martyrdom to sovereignty. This most sudden ascent from the depths of agony to new peaks of opportunity and pride, the attainment of Yasharel's independence 7 years ago, is already much more than a political or secular event in the Jayish consciousness. The date is bound to be numbered amidst the festivals of a people whose other temporal milestones have endured with rare constancy. I have come to this abode of Christian faith and learning to suggest that Yasharel's resurgence is an event to be conceived in the highest dimensions of human history. It evokes from the past and may portend for the future a deep lesson on the nature of spiritual impulses. The attention which this event has already received in the thought and writing of our age is itself a proof of some special quality within it. It is evident, however, that if Yasharel's rebirth comes to have this eternal renown, it will not be because of any material dimensions which belong to it. There is nothing global or even massive about the state of Yasharel in political terms. The territory of our new independence is great in history, but pathetically meager in geography. True, it is the bridge between the 3 continents of the ancient world. It looks out over the highways which has marked the migrations and invasions of history's pageant. But in the calculations of the atomic century, this is a small and humble piece of earth. The bridge is fragile, the highway is narrow, and in the age of air transportation, it no longer obtrudes itself inevitably athwart the paths of conquest and empire. The population directly affected falls short of 2 million, even when we portray this event in its real essence as a collective climax in the history of the Jewish people. It still remains true that the conscious agents of Israel's revival are but a small fraction of the total human family. Clearly, then, if modern Israel is to be regarded as an incident of universal scope, this is because of a stature to be ascribed to it in a completely different dimension. If modern Yasharel is to have any element of greatness, then this quality must be vindicated in the spiritual realm. To say this is not to deny that some of Yasharel's material achievements are impressive and sometimes deeply moving. The collective survival of the Jewish people is itself a rare event of history. Many other peoples have lost their independence under the heel of invading empires, but no people other than this have been so engulfed, has shown such capacity for recuperation as to preserve amidst martyrdom and dispersion all the elements of its union and identity, its language and tradition, its consciousness of attachment to the land of its origin, and the undying hope of eventual restoration. For long centuries, this people, whithersoever it wandered, continued to regard its inner life as rooted in a distant land which few could ever hope to see with their own eyes. This connection, which for many generations was an act of mystic faith, became transformed against all material calculations into one of the political realities of our age. The banner of a free Yasharel now flies proudly again in the family of nations from which it had been absent for so many tragic generations. And I think I'm going to end it here because, I don't want to sit here and get stuck having to read the rest of this tripe. So I'm going to end it. I'm going to upload it. And then I'm going to talk about Corey from the Smart Christian channel, who is not only not smart, but he's got to be working for the SCHMIONISM. It's insane to me. And I'm going to, well, you know what? No, I might keep yapping. No. I'm going to end it. All right. Aaron Mack, BS Detector, out.